Today's show starts inside a wigwam, a traditional Indian home made of birch bark that would have looked just like this 400 years ago. Families would have been sprawled out on moose hides, huddled around the fire. Well, I would be nervous, I would think, to build a fire inside of something that's made completely out of birch bark. Should I be nervous?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I'm getting ahead of the story. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Today's show takes place on Sugar Island. In fact, as we begin, I've just paddled over here with James Francis of the Penobscot Nation. Sugar Island is in the middle of the Penobscot River, just a stone's throw from the mainland in Greenbush. It's here that the Penobscots have been creating an historic settlement that very soon will be open to the public. We're getting a sneak preview today. James and I will walk around the island, visit the modern lean-tos, visit the ancient settlement with a wigwam and a long hut, and talk about what all this means for you. Because there will be at least 3 invitations to you hidden somewhere in this show. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Bar Harbor Whale Watch, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, and a Supercuts location near you. Now then, during the quick paddle, we have crossed a couple of ledges, a gravel bar or two, and we're just downstream from a lovely set of easy rapids that separate Sugar Island from the rest of the world. James?
Well, I'm James Eric Francis Sr., and I'm the Director of Cultural and Historic Preservation for the Penobscot Nation.
So Sugar Island is part of that. I've been dying to come here ever since I learned you were doing this, because I didn't know it until we talked, I think, last winter.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that we're doing up here. Both projects really focused on a cultural tourism project that we've been working on.
That's something that is near and dear to my heart. Maine is a unique place, and it has so much to offer, and the diversity of some of its people and experiences is really good. To be able to offer something like this as a tourism.
Yeah, we really wanted to showcase the river and the islands in the river and be able to educate people about our culture. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're really focused on here is, kind of package trips that both immerse the visitor in the Penobscot River, on the islands, on reservation land, and also learn something about our culture.
Well, first things first, this show, Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, airs on Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 8, which means Saturday morning listeners have virtually 24 hours to get ready for the canoe race coming up. But Sunday morning listeners had better get in the car right now. What is the race that we're doing this weekend?
Well, this is our 3rd annual Bashabez run, and it's from Indian Island to Brewer. It's roughly 13 miles canoe race through the section of the Penobscot River where they removed 2 dams.
So Sunday morning listeners would have to get in the car right now to see the end of it. They're too late already to see the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but Saturday morning listeners, hey, sleep late today, get out early tomorrow and go watch a race. What are they going to see when they see the race?
Well, you're going to be going through 3 sets of whitewater, both one at Great Works, one at Basin Mills, near the confluence where the Stillwater River comes back into the Penobscot, and then a set of rips at Vesey. Both Vesey and Great Works are the sites of the removed dams. Mm-hmm. Fantastic world-class whitewater. Class 2 or 3, nothing too, big, but very technical. Technical enough that we've hosted for the past 2 years the Nationals whitewater regatta there.
Great Works in particular is a challenging set of rapids because it's about a mile long and it's got some good drops.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. We've been kayaking there, as soon as the equipment pulled out from removing the dam. So we've had a lot of fun there. And, the thing is, changing water condition changes everything. I mean, each one of these sets of rapids changes with the water level.
I think most important is it's a long enough race that you can see some of the highlights. You can see most of the canoes and watercraft go through at Great Works. You can go over to the Bradley side, watch that. Then you got plenty of time to get downstream to the Vesey Dam site.
Absolutely, yes. The only one that's really hard to get to is the Basin Mills site.
Yeah.
But there are some paths down off of Mill Street that you can access and see people go down through.
Mm-hmm. And then it ends in Brewer. About how long is the race going to take?
It takes a couple of hours, typically, yeah. And, for the past couple of years, a war canoe with several people in it has had set the pace.
How many canoes altogether have you had, and how many are you expecting?
Well, the first year we had about 40, and last year, because we were so close, we were about a week after the Whitewater Nationals, we had a lot lower numbers. But we've spaced out the events again this year, and we're hoping to get 40 to 50 boats again.
Yeah, and once again, that's because the canoe race, the Nationals canoe race, was later last year than it was this year. They moved it up.
Yeah, they did move it up, and that was because of water levels. And they were hoping this year for more water, and unfortunately, they didn't get it.
All right, so back to Sugar Island. We have just crossed the Penobscot River. Sugar Island, how did it come by that name?
Well, it's a name that comes from the Penobscot place name for the island, which was Sugar Plum Island. It's named for the service berry, or shadbush, sometimes called. And so this was an important enough resource on this island that it retained that name, and we just shortened it in English to Sugals, or sugar. In the language that we would say Sugals.
And you have Birch Island just down the way, and I note that although Maine is just covered in Indian place names, Penobscot especially, a lot of the islands in the river are anglicized names. So you do have Sugar, and you have Birch, and you have probably Grassy and all that stuff.
Yeah, but they're anglicized from the original name. Their names are still there in spirit, so that we've always called that Birch Island and Hemlock Island. And but then you also have islands like Lemon Island, which is Walamon, which means red clay quarry. So, and it has to do with the hematite that was harvested there to the ancient burial practices here in Maine.
One of the reasons I really like hanging out with you is I learn what these place names mean every time we get together. I had no idea about a lemon.
Walamon.
No kidding. So what is the significance of Sugar Island? Was it a settlement at one time, or was it just a resource?
We did have a year-round resident here, a guy by the name of Johnny Basehorn, they called him. His name was Johnny Susep, but they called him Johnny Basehorn. And he had built what they called the cave. He had dug a foundation in the ground, lined it with rocks, and just put a roof over it. And he lived here year-round. And what he would do was cut wood. And he would get this wood ready for the winter, and then all this wood would be shuttled down the ice to Indian Island for people's firewood.
Did Penobscots ever float wood down the way they did later when lumberjacks hit the state?
No, not really.
So slide it down the ice then.
Yeah, there was actually a team of horses and a wagon that would go to the islands and pick up loads of wood, and then have the horses walk down the ice in the snow and deliver the firewood to the community.
And now that we're on Sugar Island, I can see that it probably hasn't seen an axe or saw blade in a long time.
It hasn't. This is one of the older growth islands that we have. The thoroughfare islands down below probably older than that because of its history as a burial ground island. But this is one of those islands that you'll see really big trees.
So this is going to be reestablished as sort of a cultural destination, a tourism destination. Should we go take a look at it?
Sure. Okay. The first thing we're going to see here is
poison ivy.
Yeah, right.
Let's get the goats out here.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pause here for a moment and then start walking the island. I'll warn you now, it'll only take about 20 steps before I get my first surprise. This island isn't what I thought it was. Later in the show, there are at least 2 chances for you to come over here soon. One is a grand opening celebration with barbecue. The other is a fantastic adventure that is only open to a few people. Stand by. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, and it's Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're on Sugar Island. And by we, I mean me and James Francis, Director of Cultural and Historic Preservation for the Penobscot Tribe. Sugar Island will soon be open to the public, but you're going to have to paddle to get here. We've just left our canoe in the riverbank, and we're starting to walk up toward the lean-tos. As we make the turn off the riverbank, I get quite a surprise. I figured this was a flat island in the Penobscot River, but right away, there are bluffs and gorges in the woods dominated by tall trees that must be at least a century old.
First thing you're going to see is what we call the gorge. And the topography here on the island is really interesting in that it has these gorge-like...
Look at this! How did this happen? I mean, this is just an island in the Penobscot. We turn the corner, and right away, this is all full of gorges.
Yeah, and this extends about a half mile into the island, very steep banks, and it's a really, really nice place, and one of the most picturesque places on the island. And we really like to enter the island through this way because of just what happened to you. There's a sense of, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, this is completely unexpected. I was just figuring this was an island out here. It was going to be fairly flat, no real terrain changes.
No, there's some serious terrain changes. Let's be careful coming up the bank here. So what you're going to see at the top of the hill is site number 1, we're calling. And this is the lean-to sites. And there are 8 lean-tos here, a couple of outhouses. And this was developed back in the 1970s through a program to help foster guiding in the community. And so there's 8 of these. This is what we call nulke, which is the deer. We've named each one of them after an animal. And these, although built in the 1970s, we spent this spring rehabbing them. So they've all been new roofs, new floors. They've all been leveled. And
and you have the usual challenge of getting materials and tools over here to do this kind of work.
Yeah, exactly. That was quite a challenge itself.
Well, since the 1970s, it's always a sore spot to talk about, but did the Penobscots always own this, or did it come to you from the Settlement Act?
No, this is one of our reservation lands. Our reservation land was something that we retained legally through the Treaty of 1818 with Massachusetts, which was then kind of redone in 1820 by the state of Maine. Yeah. So the reservation's land has always been the islands in the river.
Yeah, where does that stretch? Does it come Howland and above, or just Howland below, or how much of it is? You look at all the islands in the Penobscot here. How much are tribal lands?
So from Indian Island all the way to what's called Nicketow, which is at the Nicketow. Nicketow means the fork. It's 2 equally important forks, the forks of the East Branch and the West Branch. And right there at that fork is an island called Nicketow, right in Medway.
Yep.
So a lot of porcupine damage. Seriously.
I don't doubt it.
This one's called Beaver. Yeah. As you can see, we have tents out here, a big alaknak tent, just so that when we do have guests out here and we want to get in and do cultural activities, we can go inside that tent and get away from the bugs.
Which can't ever be a problem out here.
No, I mean, they're fairly mild today.
Yeah.
But, earlier in the spring, boy, it was pretty brutal.
Mosquito infested, black flies, or both?
Well, it started with the black flies like everywhere else in Maine. And
the black flies need running water, and you're right next to the Penobscot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is actually the cooks. This turtle one right here is this turtle lean-to is being used as a cook's cabin. We're going to be putting shelves inside. We can lock the doors. We'll have a barbecue grill up here that people can use and pull out. Or we're rebuilding the campfire here. This will be all, kind of Maine guide style with the the horizontal beam across the fire that you can hang pots on, and a place to put a reflector oven and things like that.
Well, speaking of which, there was going to be an event out here to celebrate the opening, and that got canceled because of thunder shower threats, and now it's August 20th. Is that correct?
Yeah, Saturday, August 20th, and it's open to the public to come up here and just see what we've done to improve this island and really make this a kind of a destination to, for people to come and learn about our culture. This is all modern buildings that we're looking at right now, these 8 lean-tos, which is, made into a really fantastic campsite overlooking the river. What are we, 30 feet above the river right now, over a bluff. Beautiful sights. But this is only part of what's going on here on Sugar Island. let's take a walk down this path, and I'll show you kind of the crowning gem of the island.
Okay.
So this is the site of one of the ones that we lost. You can see how much damage was.
Yeah.
So this was a scratch. We just said, okay, that one's beyond repair. We did an assessment last fall to find out exactly what it would take to get these lean-tos up and running, where people could stay and be safe. So this is the path to one of the outhouses, but we're going to go this way. One of the things that we're really trying to do as we were developing the trail system here on the island is to ensure that we were touching on the different kind of biomes of the island. There's a small pond in the middle of the island that you can actually canoe in, and it's
really, how big is this island?
It's I'm not sure exactly acreage, but it's a fairly substantial island. It has a pond that you can paddle around in a canoe in.
Clearly.
And there's a lot of highlands and lowlands. There's a really kind of what we've been calling the fairy forest. Very mossy, and a lot of different types of plants. So we really established the trail system to access a lot of those different environments, biomes, if you will. So one of the things that we're featuring on our cultural tourism trip is, plants, plant identification, and cultural and historical uses of those plants. So this is what we're calling Corner Camp right here. It's right here at the falls or the rapids, and this is going to have it's going to be a tent site if somebody wanted to put up a site here. It's fairly close to one of the outhouses, and it's got probably the best view on the island of running, rippling water. Beautiful in the morning.
You could get up in the morning, go down there, and take a little swim.
Yeah, exactly.
And you and I remember the days when you wouldn't swim in the Penobscot.
Yeah, exactly. My son, the other day, he wanted to go swimming, and I said, sure. So we went, and he swam in the river, but, he quickly, as soon as we got home, I told him, go take a shower.
Yeah.
Just wash the river off.
That's right.
But it's a lot cleaner these days than it ever has been.
Well, that's one of the modern miracles. We can screw things up, and every now and then we can fix something, at least a little. And we certainly screwed up the Penobscot. We asked it to do two things: make power and be a sewer. And
it was what one author called the ultimate sink. Something you could just dump something in and it would go away.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that really doesn't happen.
No, it really doesn't go away, as we learned the hard way. But fortunately, a lot of progress has been made, and we got a long way to go. But still, the Penobscot is not what it once was.
Right. One of the really great things about, I mentioned the removal of the dams and the river restoration project. One really exciting thing for us up here in Sugar Island is there's a fair number of gravel bars around Sugar Island because we're kind of still within that zone from Passadumkeag. It's about 6 miles upriver from us here in Sugar Island, Passadumkeag. And as we mentioned on your show a while back, was Passadumkeag means above the gravel bar.
Yeah.
That stream that's above the gravel bar. And so there's a lot of gravel bars in the river that are in this area, and we're starting to see salmon kind of do their thing in the gravel bar where they're laying eggs and getting ready to move on to the afterlife.
So many of us are worried that we screwed up salmon so bad it'll never come back, but that's very encouraging to hear.
Yeah, we've been seeing, we had about 3 or 4 sightings right where we crossed the river coming over to Sugar Island from the mainland. So we're, the lean-tos are on the south side of the island, and we are making our way along the eastern kind of point of the island, heading to the north side of the island, where I have a kind of little surprise.
Well, we'll keep walking. I have an inkling that we've seen the modern part of the island and we're heading toward the historic side. I know that somewhere ahead are traditional homes that could have been built 400 years ago. I'm on Sugar Island with Penobscot Cultural Director James Francis. Later in the show, you're going to get an invitation to come over here for yourself and see it. Give me 3 minutes. We'll meet you at the Wigwam. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8. I'm on Sugar Island with James Francis, Director of Cultural and Historic Preservation for the Penobscot Nation. And some of that preservation is right here on this island, located smack dab at the Penobscot River in Greenbush. This whole show is happening as we are walking around the island. This has been tribal land for longer than Maine has been a state, and really for 1,000 years. In the 1970s, lean-tos were built over here by the tribe to make some modern use out of the island. But I'm wondering, James, anytime you have limited access, a bit of isolation, and a rustic place to spend the night, 30 years ago, was this ever a party island?
Well, it wasn't necessarily a party island. I remember as a child, the recreation department of the Penobscot Nation took a bunch of us kids up there for a week at a time to go camping, and so all those lean-tos were filled with young campers, and we did cultural activities and played a game called Man Circle, which is, this really fun game that takes almost all day. And so it was used in that way. And what's interesting is a lot of us who are now adults are really excited about the resurgence of that site with the lean-tos today because of those memories that we had there. So we just arrived at the north side of the island and a T in the path, and on the very southeastern tip of the island is a very large ledge that goes out into the river flat, and it's a great place to have lunch. And so we've been calling it Lunch Ledge, and so that's very scenic down there. So we've been trying to really again focus on some of the great qualities of the island.
Well, it's certainly large enough you could accommodate quite a few people out here, and they'd still feel pretty lonely.
Yeah. We can actually, with the 8 lean-tos that we have, can really comfortably sleep 4 each. And that's just on that site. And as we're coming up to the wigwam and the longhouse site, the traditional village site, this can accommodate, up to another, I'd say 8 folks, depending on, if they want to share. We only have 2 structures here so far. So one of the things that I've wanted to do for years here on Sugar Island is create a traditional village. And so last year we got the opportunity to have Barry Dana and John Neptune come in and actually do that, build us a very large wigwam and a very modest longhouse, and both made out of birch bark and in a traditional fashion. And we are now here.
Let me hit pause here for a moment. You need a good description of what I'm seeing. There are 2 birch bark structures here. One is a wigwam. We'll go into that one first. It's about the size of a 6-man dome tent that you'd buy at L.L. Bean, except that even a tall person could stand up in the middle of it. It's almost completely made of birch bark. Big sheets of bark, maybe 3-foot strips, attached together and anchored at the bottom by some boughs. Inside, there are 4 poles that hold up the roof, but they're only used there in the winter to make sure that snow doesn't collapse the wigwam. Historically, these poles would not have been necessary because the dome structure would have been double layered and more supported. Plus, they'd be occupied and snow would not have a chance to build up in the roof. Behind the wigwam, there's another birch bark structure that looks more like a Quonset hut. Both have dirt floors and holes in the ceiling where the fire smoke would escape. Well, I saw it on the website and I said, did you culturally used to make these? And I guess the answer is yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is the typical structure of Penobscot dwelling. Quite large. I mean, larger than you would think when you look at the website. And again, fantastic views looking upriver. You can start to see what I call the bottom lobe of O'Lemon Island. O'Lemon's created from the stream, O'Lemon Stream, and it separates it from the mainland. But you can see that up here. This right here is actually today a peninsula. But it's still on the register as a Penobscot Reservation Island, because when the treaty was written, it was an island at that time. And today it's called Groundnut Island. You familiar with groundnuts?
No, I'm not.
We call them panucks. And they're a kind of potato, small potato that grows. It's all through here on this island and on that island. And it was a food source. But that was called Groundnut Island. It's what it's called today. Historically, it was known as Eagle Island, Niswagan, Menahan. But we got a great view of looking upriver. The river goes that way and that way from here. The main channel going that way.
Which opens up another cultural question. While I was waiting by the riverbank to cross over, 2 eagles went by.
Yeah.
I assume eagles were culturally significant.
Yeah, they were the messengers.
Yeah.
They were they fly highest in the sky, and they were the connection to the Great Spirit.
So we're now inside the wigwam, and is wigwam a Penobscot name, or did you borrow that from somewhere else?
No, that's a Wabanaki term.
Is it?
A Algonquin term, meaning house. And right now we still have what we call the winter braces in. So there's 4 large poles, and they're not even
they're not even attached to the ground.
They're not even attached to the ground anymore. But we wanted to make sure that the weight of the snow and all of that kept the integrity, because you would have lived here all winter and you would have been conscious of what was going on with the structure. And since we couldn't even get here this winter because of the ice situation, we couldn't cross the ice, and the river this last winter was really hard for travel.
Well, I would be nervous, I would think, to build a fire inside something that's made completely out of birch bark. Should I be nervous?
I mean, fires are always modest inside here. There is a smoke hole at the top, as was traditional, and you could put a fire in here, and your whole family would be in here, and you could keep quite cozy and quite warm. You would have furs and your moose skins and all of that. You may build bunks to lay on, but this would be your main quarters from the fall all the way in through the winter, and you and your family would reside in one of these, and you keep the fire modest enough it wouldn't take much to heat this space, and so you always were conscious of that. Usually there would be a smoke flap to keep rain and whatnot on the smoke hole, but it also the wind over the wigwam with the smoke flap creates a suction, pulling the smoke out of the structure. So very ingeniously built. And this is actually 1 layer of bark. Typically there would be a second layer of bark, and there may have been like fir boughs or pine boughs around between the layers, especially at the lower parts.
Keep the wind out.
Yeah, I mean, and you were always working on patching, a lot of maintenance, but really beautifully done.
Well, this would generally have been considered to be a permanent structure. There are times when the Penobscots would go to the coast and harvest clams, seafood, and that sort of thing, or go elsewhere.
Yeah, that was a summertime thing, and there would be wigwams down there too. But typically there would be more longhouses down there because there would be more families that were coming together. And a longhouse is like the apartment building of Indian country, especially around here. The one that we built here is kind of a scaled down version. Where the wigwam is like a dome. Yeah. The longhouse is built kind of like what we would call a Quonset hut today. This kind of rounded, half-rounded, much like the dome, but has flat ends and a door on the end. And typically, this would have more than one smoke hole. And but this one is very intimate.
Yes, it is.
So our plan for this one is to build a double bunk in here and accommodate a couple who would like to sleep in a traditional structure and not be with a bunch of people, maybe in the wigwam. I think the wigwam could accommodate, probably 6 people. Yeah. It's quite large, where this is quite a bit smaller. But again, a traditional structure. And again, we have our snow braces up, which we're getting ready to take down. And when clients come here on our trips, these will be fitted out with furs, and it'll be really comfortable space. Mosquito netting, and things like that, just so that we have the critters taken care of as far as the mosquitoes and the black flies.
Well, with the construction of the wigwam and the longhouse here, I'm assuming that was information, that technology was never lost to the tribe. Somebody remembered how to do it, and you didn't have to go restudy it.
Right. We actually had Barry Dana, who's what we consider one of our cultural experts here in the community, who's always working to pass down his knowledge to the younger generations. And when we did build this, we used it as an educational opportunity to other people could learn it. And as we're moving forward with our cultural tourism, one of the things we wanted to do is ensure that Penobscot people get certified as guides, as Maine guides, so that when we do the trip, which is going to put in the water up at Passadumke, paddle the 6 miles to the island, and then spend a couple days here, 3 days here on the island learning cultural activities. We need people to be guides, registered guides. They don't have to be here on reservation waters, but we want them to have that training.
Yeah.
But also we want to train them as cultural guides. That each class of Penobscot guides that go through the program will come up here to Sugar Island and build a birch bark wigwam as a class. And what will happen over time is we keep adding more and more wigwams to our site and increasing, the ability to let clients sleep in a traditional structure.
We're walking again. It's a big island, and we've got some ground to cover. As we leave the wigwam and longhouse behind, we'll get into what's in this for you, including an adventure trip that is planned for September. James Francis is Director of Cultural and Historic Preservation for the Penobscot Nation. We're on Sugar Island in the Penobscot River. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Today's entire show is taking place on Sugar Island in Greenbush. The island is about a half a mile north to south and 8/10 east to west. This is where the Penobscot tribe is setting up a cultural destination, which will give tourists and locals a taste of history and traditional tribal activities. So far in the program, we've paddled over, toured the lean-tos, and just finished with the first 2 recreations of a wigwam and longhouse made out of birch bark. Cultural Director James Francis is showing me around, and we're now getting into the discussion about how to get people over here without losing the authenticity of this unique place in the river.
Yeah, we're really trying to keep our pulse on, our culture and sharing our culture, but we're not trying to emulate what's going on at like Plymouth Plantation, where we're not going to be here dressed up in buckskins and feathers in our hair and all of that. We're modern Indian people, and we do have a culture that we're willing to share with people who are willing to want to understand who we are, and so it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, you have an adventure planned with Mahoosic Guiding Service. Why don't we talk about that now? Because people can actually come do that, and they can come do that this year.
Yeah, September 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th, I believe. And that's on Mahoosic.com.
Yeah, I think that is.
Yeah, I think it's Mahoosic.com, Mahoosic Guide Service. And it's, I think it's called Wabanaki Ways or something.
Yeah, I just looked it up yesterday. It's right on there.
Yeah, and so we can... we have some people signed up for it, but we still have room for others. I know you and your wife are considering coming on the trip, and the more the merrier. It really gives us an opportunity. We're having things like I mentioned the plant identification tour. We're going to have a basket making where each of the clients will be able to make themselves a basket and take home with them. We'll be talking about place names quite a bit. In Native American geography, especially in the area. Chris Alexis, our archaeologist, will be coming up and doing flint knapping demonstrations. And we'll have other people coming up and doing other things. But really, I think the most exciting thing for me is, each evening around the campfire, sitting around and answering questions that people are curious about our culture, or things that are happening in Indian country today, that we can have a conversation about in a non-threatening kind of way. And then a little drumming and singing.
See, it's total cultural immersion for several days, where you don't get it piecemeal, you get it all served up as one huge banquet for several days, plus you get the outdoor adventure. You get culture, history, and adventure all wrapped into one package. To me, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and we're going to be serving moose stew one of the evenings with fry bread, which is certainly a traditional meal for Penobscots. Probably won't have any fiddleheads because they're kind of out of season.
Yeah.
But, certainly moose stew is always in season as far as I'm concerned.
Moose makes great chili.
Yeah, absolutely.
That probably wasn't cultural, but...
That's right.
But it makes great chili. So someone who's curious about that trip, they're going to have expert guides, including from the tribe, and also from a Mahusic Guiding Service.
Absolutely. All their accommodations are taken care of, whether you want to sleep in the traditional village with the wigwam and the longhouse, or in one of the more modern lean-tos, or switch it up a little bit. Really trying to give people opportunities to be comfortable and to really enjoy the river. At the falls that are here at Sugar Island, we found that it's a really excellent place to learn how to pole a canoe. And with Polly Mahoney and Kevin Slater from Mahusic Guide Service, it's really an opportunity to get their expertise on poling, as well as some of our Penobscot guides who pole.
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of people don't get a chance to do.
I could canoe before I could walk, but I never poled. Never poled.
Well, that was the main way to get upriver.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to pole up a set of rapids than it was to try to paddle it or even portage around them. And so it requires a lot of skill and balance. And
oh, well, then I shouldn't have any problem. Somebody's going to pull me out of the river.
What's really interesting about where Sugar Island lays in the river is we're in a place where the river just explodes with islands. With the Birch Islands, which are a set of twin islands just to the west of us, Hemlock Island, Cow Island just below us, Lemon Island to the north of us, with a whole series of kind of no-name islands all over the place. There's really a great opportunity for the clients when they're here, to take out a canoe or a kayak and paddle around just to check things out, and not have to stray too far from the island. So there's going to be opportunities to do that, or swim in the river if that's what they want to do.
Well, to book the trip, it's very important to mention that it's done through Mahusic Guiding Service there. You do it. Their website has all the information. They don't call you. Well,
right.
They could, but you're just going to point them over there.
Exactly. So this is kind of a pilot program for us, working with Mahusic. They have all the, all of that set up, and
that's what they do.
It's what they do. And so we started partnering with them after we went on the Thoreau trip a couple of years ago. And short, kind of, I think 9 miles to Indian Island from here. And so when they were here, the lean-tos were in pretty sad shape. The porcupines had gotten to them, and luckily for us today, they're all fresh and new and ready to go.
So let's say 10 years from now, what's the vision of what this place is going to look like and be like?
Well, we're hoping to continue to raise funding, and I'd like to, see a small lodge here amidst all the lean-tos, a place where we can all gather indoors and have a kitchen and a fireplace, and I'd like to see the traditional village to continue to grow as each subsequent class of guides who are being trained builds another one. I'd like to see a lot of cultural activities for the tribe happen here. One thing that we really would like to do is build another birch bark canoe. We have 3 of them right now that we've built as part of classes, but we'd like to keep that going because a lot of people in the Wabanaki communities learned how to build these birch bark canoes through these classes, and each class produces a new birch bark canoe.
Once again, I'm with James Francis, Director of Cultural and Historic Preservation for the Penobscot Nation. We're on Sugar Island in the Penobscot River next to Greenbush, which now contains outdoor adventure, history, and cultural demonstrations for the Penobscot tribe. We've covered a lot of ground in the show so far, so if you missed something, grab some paper and pencil and we'll recap in a moment. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're wrapping up things here on Sugar Island. The island has been here since the last ice age. Penobscot Indians have been using it for millennia, collecting berries and harvesting wood. I'm with James Francis, Director of Cultural and Historic Preservation for the Penobscot Nation. Well, let's touch the highlights of what's coming up again. First of all, if you're listening to the show on a Saturday morning, tomorrow morning, there's the Bashabez race. How do you...
Bashabez?
Yeah, I pronounce that differently every time I say it.
Yeah. Well, Bashabez was a chief. He was
right.
Was the Penobscot chief who made his way downriver, that same section of the river, to meet Samuel Champlain in 1604. And so we wanted to honor that that kind of journey, and so that's why we call it Bashabez Run. It's that same run down the river that he and his contingent of diplomats made, back then. So...
So when I looked that up, he was really the first Penobscot chief that the Europeans encountered. That's why it's preserved in history.
Yeah, he's the first documented chief.
Yeah. My recollection is that Bashabez did not die of natural causes.
No, he died as a kind of revenge for another death. There was a death of a Micmac warrior in the Penobscot River Valley, and the Micmacs avenged that death by waging war all along the coast of Maine from about 1608 to about 1615, and the last act of that kind of warring period was the death of the chief that was in power when that young man died. He was actually the nephew of a Micmac chief.
So we have a canoe race coming up on Sunday morning. That starts at 8. For listeners to the show on Sunday morning, it's already started.
Yeah, and you can go to paddleguru.com and sign up for that race. That's a great website to look at. I think most of the paddlers who do races are very familiar with that site. But paddleguru.com has all kinds of races all over the place that people may be interested in. But scroll down, you'll find Bashabez Run, our 3rd annual.
And then we have August 20th, a barbecue out here, a celebration, sort of a grand opening.
Yeah, we're going to, pull out all the stops and have barbecue up here all day long for people to come and go as they please and kind of walk the trails and go see the wigwams. We may have the birch bark canoe up here for people to try out and just enjoy the island. It's fantastic. The topography is great. The trees are fantastic, and it's surrounded by water. It's an island.
Where would people find information as to where they're supposed to put in a canoe, catch a canoe? How do they get here?
Well, a couple of places. You can friend me at Penobscot Culture on Facebook. I send out a lot of messages on that. But also we'll be putting something up at penobscotculture.com.
Okay. And then, of course, the big trip, the multiple-day trip, which is culturally significant, historically significant, and outdoor adventure all rolled into one with Mahoosuc service. That is coming up in mid-September.
It is, and mahoosuc.com, and we're really excited about it. And, we hope to get a good number of people. And, it's amazing when we do these trips at how many friendships are forged during a period like that.
Well, James, we're going to have to do this more often.
Well, I'm hoping to see you on that trip.
Yeah. James Francis, Director of Cultural and Historic Preservation for the Penobscot Nation. We've spent the last hour on Sugar Island, where James and the tribe are putting together an historic and cultural destination. Mark August 20th on your calendar, because that's the day there will be a celebration over here, and you can really see it all for yourself. Of course, that'll give you two impossible choices for the day, because August 20th is also the day when there will be a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Allagash Wilderness Waterway way up in the town of Allagash. It's the second of two celebrations. I went to the first one, and you're going to hear all about that next weekend when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 8. Remember, all shows are archived online at 929theticket.com. It's all brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Doors Equipment, Bar Harbor Whale Watch, Napa Auto Parts, EBS, and a Supercuts location near you. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.